Curt, thank you so much for joining us on Social Impact Power Chats. I am truly delighted to have you here. As someone who I've known for too many years to count, it's really a treat. So thank you.
Thanks for having me.
All right. And as is our theme here with Power Chats, we are going to jump right in. Normally we're bringing people on to the chat who have some role either within a corporation or a foundation. You do not. Spoiler alert. Your role is actually with an NGO. And so I would love for you to tell us, how you, and by the way, I consider your work social impact work solidly. So, as I know you do. So tell us a little bit about how you got into social impact work as it was.
Yeah. So I serve as the co-founder and co-CEO of FoodCorps. And our work is about connecting kids to experiences of food in school that nourish their health, their education, and their sense of belonging. I got into this work because food is such a powerful force in all of our lives. And it was in my life as a young person. Food is how we create culture. Food is how we nourish our bodies and our minds to do our best work every day. And food is what connects us to the planet. Every single time we take a bite of something, we are essentially making a choice to be farmers. So the reason I care about food is because I believe it is at the intersection of all of the things that we as a world and a country are trying to figure out: racial and social justice, environmental health and sustainability, human health and public health, and American culture. And how do we see and celebrate the diversity of this remarkable set of people who are in this place?
Amazing. So, you touched on this super briefly, but I'd love to unpack it just a little bit. Part of your work, by necessity, is working with businesses, right? If you think about it, we're all farmers. Farming is a business, in America, at least, right? So, I'd love for you just to shed a little bit of light on how in your day-to-day, just more macro, you think about working with, corporations large and small, and how that, builds into the philosophy of FoodCorps.
Yeah. So FoodCorps engages with corporate partners and corporate entities in a couple of primary directions. One of those is around our programmatic work. Nourishing kids through food in school is a colossal business. It is critically important to the well-being of kids, and it's also the nation's largest restaurant chain. There are 7 times more school cafeterias in America than there are McDonald's. And so if we care about the business of food in this country, and we care about doing that business responsibly and sustainably and ethically and healthfully, we have to care about schools. So part one is the huge number of businesses that are part of the school meal supply chain that gets 30 million kids, 5 billion meals a year, and is often responsible for half the daily calories that kids eat. The second way that FoodCorps works with businesses is in corporate partnerships. We are a national nonprofit organization with a $25 million annual budget. And a significant part of the resources we deploy into the world come to us through partnerships with brands that are mission aligned and values aligned and care about seeing the kind of change in the world that FoodCorps cares about, which is a future by the end of this decade where every child in America has access to food education and free nourishing meals in school every day.
Amen. An ambitious goal, but I think, one that you're really driving at actively, right? It's not hypothetical. It's something that you have built blocks for years and are activating. So speaking of that activation, here on Social Impact Power Chats, we really want to get granular, knowing that there are people who are listening who are turned on by this idea that you can build really powerful public-private partnerships. If you could walk us through sort of a micro example, just, one that would be helpful to think through, how would you go about building a specific partnership that is additive for both partners in a really hearty way?
Yeah. So, it has to start with shared goals and with shared values. And at FoodCorps, the work we do, we're in a lucky place of nobody really hates it. People support generally the idea of kids having access to great nourishing meals in school, knowing that that's a place where kids spend half their waking hours. And so we've been able to partner with some really extraordinary corporate allies who see that work as critical to the well-being of our planet and the well-being of the next generation, and who are willing to put in place what they have to offer. And so we look for complementary partnership opportunities where we're doing powerful work in the world. We got boots on the ground in hundreds of schools around the country, connecting kids to great food every day. And our corporate partners can show up with resources financially that power that work. They can show up with brand visibility that help leverage that work into more and more audiences. And they can be advocacy partners who can stand shoulder to shoulder with us, talking about the urgency and importance of creating a future where every kid has access to great food in school. So, if you look at a partnership like the one we have right now with the Newman's Own Foundation, there's a really terrific food brand that's in supermarket shelves around the country. They've got FoodCorps, AmeriCorps members and kids from our program on the back of their pizza boxes. They've got billboards up around the country right now as we speak in Atlanta and New York City and Chicago, celebrating the work of connecting kids to healthy food in school. And it's powering their brand to share that story because they're in a place of giving back 100% of the profits that they bring in to organizations like FoodCorps to support great work for kids around the country. So it's a mutually beneficial partnership to do great work together, provide financial resourcing to support that work, and then to celebrate that work and start giving consumers a chance to climb the ladder of engagement and say, yes, I care about this brand because I like the product, but also I care about this brand because I like the values it represents. And here's a chance for me to start activating, not just as a consumer, but as a citizen advocate around an issue that has become important to me.
It's totally brilliant. And where you started with all of this is values alignment. So that's very easy to do when the nonprofit that you're talking to and the brand that you're talking to have something that there is an aligned mission around. We call it getting to duh. Like you're like, oh, duh, like that makes all the sense in the world. And so those are, such sweet spots to do this philanthropy plus work that you're talking about. Yes, it's the check that you can cut, but there's other tools in their toolkit that maybe even, are more valuable or at least equally valuable to the dollars. It's the notoriety, the access, the product itself, et cetera. So I love everything that you just shared. As you're thinking about putting together these more what I'll call sophisticated partnerships, any lessons learned or, speed bumps that you've identified along the way that would be helpful to our listeners to think about?
I mean, absolutely. We learned the hard way that it is one of the kind of structural flaws of the nonprofit sector is that the accountability and incentive structures for folks in my shoes as a nonprofit leader too often run accidentally to our funding partners and not to the constituents we exist to serve. Yeah. And FoodCorps has made a serious commitment as a justice organization to putting the kids we exist for at the center of every decision we make. And that has required us to think really hard about how to build corporate partnerships in particular that aren't just about advancing the bottom line of the corporate partner or the bottom line of FoodCorps as a nonprofit corporation, but are actually about putting the needs and the desires of community first. And that can be a hard conversation to have with the marketing department or the corporate foundation or just the kind of entrepreneur at a business who's trying to advance their work in the world. Just actually realize, no, to do our work with integrity, we cannot do extractive storytelling that takes a child or a family story and puts it out in public in a way that they are not really the authors of their own story and sharing their own dreams. We cannot do deficit-based storytelling that says, look at all these things that are terrible. We are the heroes who are here to fix it as some kind of savior. We have to instead really listen to what are the dreams and aspirations of the communities we are here to partner with, and how do we, through the holistic support we could bring as a nonprofit and a corporate partner, how do we actually lift up those dreams and make those dreams possible in whatever we can contribute, but not become the authors of somebody else's life and somebody else's story.
And I'll just say, for anyone who's trying to now take Curt's wisdom and turn this into a playbook within their own organization, while it may feel counterintuitive because you may be getting pushback, this is actually better for the work as it relates to the business too. Because ultimately, if what you're doing is saying we have a cornerstone social impact effort, it's real, there's a value that's being brought to society, the more that it is a constituent service mindset where you're actually talking about making a difference, the more that work can be true and create value for the business in all the ways that we know that's possible. So everything that Curt said, I second. And also, I promise it's actually better for the end goal.
Yes, the best thing you can do at the end of the day through a corporate partnership is actually make impact that a community wants. And so if you enter into that project saying, we have all the answers, we have the metrics that matter, we'll tell you what you need, you're not going to be relevant and you're not going to make a meaningful difference. And people are not going to want the support you're trying to offer. And so the challenge is really, how do you do the vetting process up front? And we do a lot of vetting as a nonprofit of potential corporate partners. And we like corporate partners that do a lot of vetting of us to determine that there is actually a great match between what we're trying to do in the world and what they're trying to do in the world. And then we really try to just listen to the communities we exist to serve and say, how can we take our collective assets and deploy them for your goals?
Amazing. Music to my ears, Curt. Okay, final question here that we always ask everybody. You have a crystal ball this year, maybe a few years into the future. Where are you seeing social impact driving today? Kind of what are your predictions for where we're going?
Yeah, I mean, I think the challenge that the social sector is confronting is that we have built a lot of piecemeal responses and programs and solutions to symptoms. We have not figured out how do we as a field collectively address the root causes of the issues that now need to be solved. So how do we address systemic racism, structural poverty, the way in which systems that folks around the country are counting on for their basic well-being were actually not designed with their interests most at heart. We need to shift where power sits in our public systems and really put the folks who are most impacted by public programs, public systems, the social sector at the center of being the architects of what those programs and offerings become.
Sounds like a good plan to me. I hope your crystal ball has some accuracy in it. Well, thank you so much for power chatting with us. I appreciate it. I know this will be very helpful to people who are thinking about how to build meaningful, additive, altruistic partnerships with NPOs and businesses. And I think the work that you all are doing is incredible, and keep getting healthy food to kids.
Thanks so much, Emily.